Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about MAME. MAME stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Multiple Arcade Machine Emulation, depending on how you wanted to interpret that. Anyways, here MAME version 0.277 just dropped with a whole bunch of improvements that you may be interested in. So first and foremost, they've added in support for compiling on 64-bit ARM-based systems running Windows 11. On top of that here, Konami GX blending effects are now looking much nicer, Sega Model 2 3D geometry is behaving better, and they fixed some issues with Philips CDI graphics decoding. On top of that, because yes, there's more, there's audio improvements here for Famicom, WonderSwan, and Game Boy games. But wait, there's even more. They say here there's a big update for the Apple II and Macintosh floppy disk software lists. A lot of Macintosh new bus cards have been overhauled as well. We can see there's bug fixes, new working systems, new working clones, and even more. Every month is a big month for MAME, and this month is absolutely no different. The development team is on fire. If you are curious about this and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we're talking about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Citron, and this was a very interesting post I saw. LMAO Citron downloads are gone. However, based on my understanding and publicly available information, it does seem that Citron downloads are still available. I see Linux builds, I see Android builds, I see Windows builds. I don't really see any issues here, so I don't know. But speaking about Nintendo Switch, and next up here we're talking about the Nintendo Switch and software updates. And in terms of software updates, this one is pretty big, and they've actually provided a changelog. They've let us know there's more stuff in here than stability improvements. So at the time of filming, version 20.0.0 has just dropped. And this one introduces some brand new features like the virtual game card. Now, Nintendo unveiled and talked about virtual game cards in their last Nintendo Direct, so this really isn't new news in terms of features, but it is news that the feature is now available. So they say here, purchase Nintendo Switch digital software, DLC, and some free software are now virtual game cards and displayed in a list in this menu. You can virtually load and eject virtual game cards between up to 2 Nintendo Switch systems. And virtual game cards can be lent to others in the same Nintendo account family group. In my opinion, for digital games, this is a nice feature if you've got multiple Switches in the same household. I mean, you can't play the exact same game on 2 Switches at the same time, unless you've got 2 individual copies. By lending a game, you can no longer play it on the home system. Let me know your thoughts about this one, though, because I think this is a big step forward for Nintendo for multiple Switch households. If you don't have multiple Switches in your household, I don't think this is very useful for you. Maybe you find a way to make it useful, I don't know. I think Steam does an overall better job at dividing games between family members and making them accessible. But at the same time here, I mean, this is good for Nintendo. But wait, there's more. Kind of. This is a big update. So, okay, I think this is a good feature, but at the same time here, you can't use it yet. So compatible software can be shared from a Nintendo Switch 2 system to other nearby systems to play together. That is a good feature, although it's limited to a Nintendo Switch 2, which hasn't released yet. You can only play together via local wireless, and the Nintendo Switch 2 system must initiate game share. This feature cannot be used between 2 Nintendo Switch OLED model, and or Nintendo Switch Lite systems. So you need at least one Nintendo Switch 2. If you wanted to test this feature out early, maybe you can try to get your hands on that Switch 2 that was stolen from the Nintendo factory. On top of that, they've added in online license settings. They say when turned on, you can play downloaded software or DLC you've purchased while the system is connected to the internet, even if you don't have the virtual game card loaded. And they've also added in system transfer to Nintendo Switch 2, although again, the Switch 2 has not been released. And on top of that, they've changed some profile icons, either for better or for worse. So here is a picture of all of the changes. You can see that Mario has changed a little bit. Luigi is now smiling. DK has changed quite a bit to the new version of DK. And there are some changes to almost everything else. I mean, look at that huge change in the question mark block. It kind of looks the exact same. I would say the big ones here are just in the Mario characters. And speaking about changes, next up here we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with PS OFF or PS OFF. And PS Off just got a brand new update, and this one is pretty big in some aspects. So at the time of filming, 2025 April 30 is the latest update. I kind of like these date versions. It makes things a lot easier to see when they released. Anyways, here they've added application icons, added the French translations, added some missing libc and compiler functions, added some kernel stuff, save data, audio stuff, and even more. For the user interface, and I think this is a nice feature. It's a nice quality of life feature. They've added the option to lock the mouse cursor inside the emulator window. They say it improves user experience in games with PC mouse support, and I would say absolutely yes. And on top of that, they say somewhat big fixes for Unity games have been just released. They say this is a borderline stable release. They actually thought to make it unstable for now since they're not really sure how many things didn't break here and there. And speaking about experimental stuff, next up here we're talking about Altered Beast. If you're a fan of Altered Beast, you may be a fan of this. This is Altered Beast 2 for the Sega Genesis. It's currently a work in progress. Some fans are putting this one together and it is an alpha version. I don't know the release date on this one. I don't know where it's going to be available, but at the same time here, there is a YouTube video showcasing some gameplay in action for the alpha version. I would say this one is shaping up fairly nicely. And speaking about stuff that's shaping up really nicely, next up we're talking about the exact opposite and something that's being maybe if you're a fan of Apex Legends, but if you're not a fan of Apex Legends, you're probably not going to like this news. So over on Twitter here, Respawn has made an announcement in very small text that they've canceled 2 early stage incubation games to focus on Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi. And EA has reportedly laid off 100 people over at Respawn. So it's being reported in multiple locations. I think Bloomberg may have been one of the first to break this, but EA is laying off 300 to 400 people, including 100 at Respawn. I think this is a trend we're all too familiar with in the games industry over the last couple of years, and it seems like it's going to be continuing, and who knows for how long. Anyways, it's being rumored, or reported rather, that one of the games canceled at Respawn was an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe. Next up, if you're a fan of PUBG, where PUBG stands for, well, we know what it stands for. It stands for 2 things here, and one of those is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Anyways, here, PUBG 2.0 is on the way. It's being built in Unreal Engine 5. It'll have user-generated content, soft modding, and a well-made mode. And this was on the Krafton's earning call, so it is confirmed here, but unfortunately we don't have a release date or anything like that. I would assume it's going to take quite a while to reach PC. Now, I'm not going to lie here. I actually like PUBG. I've been playing it for years. I bought it when it was a purchasable game, and I've been playing it ever since. And it's one of the very few games that I still boot into Windows for. It's one of the only reasons I've still got Windows on a portable drive that I use. And yes, you can put Windows on a portable drive. It's not the most optimal experience, but you can absolutely do it. Rufus may be your friend there. And as you can see here, I've got it on a decent drive. It is going through USB-C, but it does work. I'm getting sidetracked now. Anyways, my hope for PUBG 2 is that it works on Linux. I'm hoping here with an anti-cheat that they figure something out to make it work on Linux. And speaking about anti-cheats and Linux, next up here we're talking about EA and EA Javelin. So it's being reported here that EA rebrands and refresh their anti-cheat into EA Javelin anti-cheat, but they still block Linux in the Steam Deck. The thing that really grinds my gears here is that they're intentionally blocking Linux platforms. That's just super unfortunate. But I guess at the same time here, EA hasn't put out anything recently that I deem as a must play and drop everything to play. That's my opinion though. Anyways, here they're saying that EA Javelin anti-cheat has blocked over 33 million cheat attempts across 2.2 billion PC gaming sessions. And fair play is up. Cheater presence in Battlefield 2042 matches was cut in half. If you wanted to learn more about this one, Gaming on Linux has got you covered, and again, links are in the description below at the bottom. I'm actually a big fan of Gaming on Linux. I think it's a great website. Anyways, here, this comment on the website, I think really sums things up from my perspective. If they don't want to do business with Linux users, I don't want to do business with them. And speaking about not doing business, next up we're talking about Banjo Kazooie. And if you're a fan of Banjo Kazooie and we're hoping for a version of it on modern consoles, a new version of it on modern consoles, then you might be disappointed to hear this opinion from Grant Kirkhope. Grant Kirkhope is widely known. Anyways, he says it's better than 0, but not by much. It is worth noting that is just an opinion about the chances of a sequel for Banjo, but at the same time here, Kirkhope says he's unsure if developer Rare still has an appetite for the series. Despite the positive response from the fan for a social media post, Kirkhope doesn't believe a new sequel would sell enough copies. And I would say that is very unfortunate. I think there's a lot of fans of the series, and if the game was done right, I think it would sell. But that's just my opinion. The full interview is up on Eurogamer, and I do recommend giving it a read here. Grant would return to the series in a heartbeat if he was asked, so I'm assuming he has not been asked yet, and I'm assuming he would be one of the first people who was asked about making a return. So who knows here, but at the very least, it doesn't even seem like a sequel is even on the table at this point. Moving on, and we're talking about a brand new ROM hack here for Inspector Gadget, and this one is by Billy Time. So Billy Time has just released a brand new YouTube video. I do recommend checking it out, and in the description of that YouTube video, there are some very helpful links. Anyways, it's called Inspector Gadget, the Gadgeteer. Now, this is not necessarily a huge ROM hack in terms of overall content. It's not like there's new missions and a brand new quest and new story and everything like that. This is more or less tweaks to the initial game that I think are nice quality of life features and kind of stuff I wish was in the initial game. So as for the new features, you can use the blue copter now to multi-jump, which I think is a really awesome feature. Improved camera updates while in midair, also very useful. Increased brain cap, and can skip Chief Quimby level intros. And speaking about trailers for stuff, next up here we're talking about Project Motor Racing. And Project Motor Racing just got a brand new reveal trailer up on YouTube. There's not a whole lot of gameplay, but at the same time here, I think if you're a racing fan, this may be something to be excited about. This game is headed to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Will release at some point in 2025, and I'm hoping here it's going to be compatible on the Steam Deck. They say there's 70 plus iconic cars across 10 definitive racing classes in intense single-player career and online racing modes. However, taking a look at the comments here, and there are some mixed reactions, and arguably rightfully so. So this person says, I love the idea of reviving old racing series such as GT2, GT1, LMPs, or maybe Group C. I'm gonna need a demo before I buy Project Car 4, guys. I still have a functioning memory. Remember, people, this is from the guy that gave us Project Cars 3, Tame Your Expectations. We'll have to wait and see here, but it does seem there are some very mixed reactions on this one. A lot of people are excited about it, though. And for reference here, for some more context, Project Cars 3 has an overall mixed review score on Steam, and feel free to check it out to read some of the reviews and kind of see where it's sitting. Next up, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077 running on the Nintendo Switch 2, and if you're interested in this one and curious to see how it performs, there's a brand new video put out by Nintendo of America showcasing just that. We have talked about this game just a few days ago and how it's using DLSS to try to upscale things and make things look better. And it seems to be running pretty good. On top of that, it's being reported that you can use the Joy-Cons to wield katanas. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Although the game came out like 5 years ago, at the same time here, this is pretty good for the Switch too. I think it gives the console a bit of a more mature look, and hopefully for them attracts a more mature audience. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but wielding katanas with Joy-Cons kind of reminds me a little bit, just a little bit of Skyward Sword. And speaking about watching stuff, next up here we're talking about Borderlands 4, and today they're having a Borderlands 4 gameplay deep dive state of play. If you're interested in Borderlands 4, you can check it out. It's going to air at some point today, depending on where you're at. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so maybe after you're watching this video, maybe before, who knows. Either way here, this game is reportedly releasing early. Development is apparently going so well here that they've moved up the launch date to September 12th of this year. And Borderlands 4, I think, has a lot of people excited. And speaking about release dates, next up we're talking about The Siege and the Sandfox. This is an indie game that they're saying is pure stealth Metroidvania, and I think it looks really nice. The backgrounds look really good, the gameplay looks crisp, and it did just get a release date. The Siege and the Sandfox is headed to PC via Steam, GOG, and Epic on May 20th. Unfortunately, I don't know pricing details just yet, but this is a game that's on my radar. And speaking about release dates in May, next up we're talking about Lost Soul Aside. This game was supposed to release on May 30th and has been delayed until August 29th. There's an announcement up over on their Steam store page. I believe Lost Solicide is an indie game being published by Sony. If I'm incorrect with that, let me know in the comments below. But anyways here, this is an action game. I'm getting Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy vibes kind of all rolled up into one. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I think a lot of people would be interested in a game like this. And last up here, we're talking about Proton. And if you're on Linux, like the Steam Deck, you're going to be extremely excited about this one. Proton 10.0-1 beta has just dropped. There's a whole bunch of brand new playable games here, although a lot of these were already playable via Proton Experimental. So Batman Arkham Asylum, Factorio, Black Ink. This is a huge one, at least in my opinion. The King of Fighters 13 Global Match. Video game 924310. Willful X Rebirth VR Edition. And even more. And there's fixes here for a bunch of other games. On top of that, there's even more stuff. There's improvements to video game playback in certain games like Microsoft Flight Simulator and stuff on certain GPUs like NVIDIA GPUs. And even more. I would say this is a pretty big update. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. It's Mrs. Sujano's birthday today, so feel free to go over to her channel and wish her a happy birthday. I'll drop a link in the comments below, the top pinned comment. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.